Good morning, everyone. My name is Nidira Chandra Utami, and the three last student number is 104. Today, I would like to present about the limit. In this presentation, I will explain the definition of limit, properties of limit, methods for solving limits, application of limit, example problem, and conclusion. Let's begin. First, let's discuss the definition of a limit. A function limit is the value that a function approaches when the independent variable approaches a certain value. In other words, we are interested in what happens to the function as x gets closer and closer to a particular number. If x approaches a, then f of x approaches L. This concept is very important because it forms the foundation of calculus. And mathematically, is the limit of f of x as x approaches a equals L. Now let's discuss the properties of limits. Limit operation follows several important rules. These properties allow you to calculate limits more efficiently. For example, the limit of a sum is equals to the sum of the limit. Similarly, the limit of a product is equals to product of the limit. There are also rules for subtraction, division, powers, and roots. These properties simplify complicated limit problems and make calculation easier. When evaluating limits, we often use these properties before applying any special method. Okay, the first method is the substitution method. This method is the simplest way to evaluate a limit. We directly replace x with the value that it approaches. If the substitution produces a definite numerical result, then the result is the limit. For example, if we want to find the limit of a function as x approaches 2, we simply replace x with 2. If the result is a real number and not an undefined form, then we have found the answer. Therefore, substitution should always be the first method we try. The next method is the factoring method. The factoring method is used when direct substitution product and in the indeterminate form such as 0 divided by 0. In this situation, we factor the numerator or denominator and simplify the expression. After simplifying, we substitute the value again. This process often removes the factor causing the indeterminate form. As a result, the limit can be evaluated successfully. The third method is the conjugate root method. This method is used for limit involving square root. When direct substitution, product, and indeterminate form, we multiply the expression by its conjugate. Multiplying by the conjugate helps eliminate the square root and simplify the expression. After simplification, we can evaluate the limit normally. This method is very used for algebraic function containing radicals. Application of limit. Limits are not only theoretical concepts, they are widely used in many fields. For example, physics use limit to study motion and velocity. Engineering use limit to analyze structure and system. Economics use limit to model growth and change. Limits are also used to calculate velocity, acceleration, and population growth. For example, the speed of a car can be determined by examining how the distance changes over time. Therefore, limits play an important role solving real-world problems. For example, the next is example problem. Now let's look at some example problem. This example demonstrates how limits can be evaluated using the method discussed earlier. For the first problem, we evaluate the limit by applying direct substitution. If substitution gives a numerical value, then that value is the answer. For the second problem, we may need to simplify the expression before evaluating the limit. The correct method depends on the form of the function. By applying substitution, factoring, or conjugate roots appropriately, we can solve the problem accurately. For this problem, we first identify the form of the function. Then we choose appropriate method. After simplifying the expression, we substitute the value and obtain the final answer. Okay, to the conclude its presentation, is a limit is the value that a function approaches at the variable approaches a specific number. Several methods can be used to evaluate limit. These methods include substitution, factoring, and conjugate roots. Limits are fundamental concepts in calculus and have many applications in science, engineering, economy, and everyday life. Therefore, understanding limit is essential for studying advanced mathematics. Okay, thank you for listening to my presentation. I hope this presentation helped you understand algebraic function limit better. If you have any question, I would be happy to answer them.